Welcome to Coffee with Viking. I am Mike. Cheers. Acts, how the church was born. In this sequel to the Gospel of Luke, Acts tells the story of what happens after Jesus leaves the planet, after he ascends. The writer, whom most Bible experts agree was probably Luke, starts by closing the book on the Jesus story, or as we call them, the Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The disciples gather on the slopes of the Mount of Olives and watch Jesus ascend into the sky, which would have been an amazing thing to see. Just like seeing him come back on his second coming. As he leaves, Jesus gives one final instruction to the disciples. Wait in Jerusalem for the Holy Spirit. This divine Spirit fills them with the courage to spread the teachings of Jesus everywhere, even in Jerusalem, where Jewish leaders had orchestrated the execution of Jesus only a few weeks earlier. Thousands of Jews who come to Jerusalem for a religious festival convert in a single day, embracing the teachings of the disciples. Jewish leaders retaliate. They bring pressure to bear on leaders and members of what they consider an emerging heretical Jewish cult. 1. Ordering them to stop the blasphemous teaching that Jesus is God's Son and that he rose from the dead. 2. Arresting and trying many of those who refuse. And 3. Executing some. This violence eventually drives many believers out of town, but wherever they go, they take their new faith with them, and soon the teachings of Jesus are spreading all over the Roman Empire, and as we know it, eventually to the world. In the picture you see as the thumbnail I took is the jailbreak, where an angel frees imprisoned Peter. Like the other disciples, Peter is no longer afraid of prison or death. In fact, he became one of the most courageous. And when it came time for his execution, he refused to be crucified the same way as Jesus was. He said if they crucify him, then do it upside down. Now that he has seen the resurrected Jesus in this selfless abandon, the church is born. And the church isn't a building. We already know the church is us. It is us out there sharing the word of Christ. Acts 1, 4 and 5. Do not leave Jerusalem until the Father sends you the gift he promised, which is the Holy Spirit. In just a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit. And the main point of Acts is Jesus' followers are to spread the good news or the gospel about him and his teachings everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And that's Acts 1:8. The writer isn't identified, though the book is written to a mysterious person named Theophilus. For more about Theophilus, see Luke's Gospel page. Church leaders, at least as early as the AD 100s, said the Gospel of Luke and Acts of the Apostles were both written by Luke, a non-Jewish physician who traveled with Paul. The date of the book. The story of Acts covers more than 30 years from the ascension of Jesus in about AD 30 to the trial of Paul in the 60s. Luke may have written this book while waiting for Romans to try Paul in the AD 60s, or he may have written it in the 70s or 80s, long after the Romans executed Paul. In the location where this was written, the Roman Empire sprawled throughout the Mediterranean world. Scenes play out in what are now the countries of Israel, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, Greece, Italy, Cyprus, and Crete. Even before Jesus was crucified, he told his disciples he would soon have to leave. I am going away to the one who sent me, Jesus tells them. If I don't, the advocate won't come. And that was John 16:5 and 7. Advocate can also mean comforter or encourager, which is the Holy Spirit he was talking about. Jesus makes it clear that he's talking about the Holy Spirit who will guide you into all truth. And that's in John 16:13. Now is the time for Jesus to leave in an event Luke uses to begin Acts of the Apostles, his sequel to the Gospel of Luke. 40 days earlier, Jesus rose from the dead and started appearing to his disciples from time to time, teaching them. Now he leads this small band of disciples to just outside Jerusalem. They walk to Bethany on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives. There Jesus tells them to go back to Jerusalem and fight for the Spirit. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And that's Acts 1:8. Jesus ascends into the sky, and the disciples walk back to Jerusalem to wait. They select Matthias to replace Judas Iscariot, who had killed himself after helping Jewish leaders arrest Jesus. So they're back to a dozen. Word spreads that the Spirit is coming, so about 120 believers wait and pray together. Included in the group are Jesus' brothers and mother. The wait lasts about 10 days, with the Spirit arriving on the day of Pentecost. This is an annual harvest festival that usually falls in late May or early June. It took place 50 days after Jesus' execution on Passover Eve. Suddenly there was a sound from heaven like the roaring of a mighty windstorm, and it filled the house where they were sitting. Then what looked like flames or tongues of fire appeared and settled on each of them. And everyone present was filled with the Holy Spirit and began speaking in other languages as the Holy Spirit gave them this ability. And that'll be in Acts 2 and 4. In the Bible, wind and fire often accompany divine appearances. Like in Exodus 3:2, the burning bush. The angel of the Lord appeared to him, Moses, in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. In Exodus 19:18, the Ten Commandments, all of Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord had descended on it in the form of fire. And in Ezekiel 37:9, the valley of dry bones, this is what the sovereign Lord says, come, O, breathe from the four winds, breathe into these dead bodies so they may live again. Jewish pilgrims have crowded Jerusalem for the Pentecost festival. They have come from regions throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. These include what are now Israel, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Egypt, Libya, Italy, Crete, and Jordan. Many people hear the loud noise, so they come running to check it out. What they discover astonishes them. We all hear these people speaking in our own languages about the wonderful things God has done, and that'll be in Acts 2:11. With a crowd assembled, Peter launches into a dramatic sermon quoting the Old Testament. He points out prophecies about the resurrection of Jesus and the coming of God's Spirit. Then he announces that all of this has just happened, convinced in part by miracles. About 3,000 people believe what Peter says. They are baptized and added to the church that day, and that'll be Acts 2:41. The Christian movement has started, and most believers, if not all, are Jewish. In the first church of the temple, which is right there, the first Christians gathered for worship at a spot under Solomon's colonnade at the Jewish temple, covered with a cedar roof, and colonnade stretched 300 yards long. Most believers were Jews, but some were Gentile converts to the Jewish faith. Solomon's colonnade was in the outer courtyard where non-Jews were allowed. And as we're seeing here, Acts is the beginning of the church. It is the beginning of Gentiles converting and the growth of the Holy Spirit reaching out to so many. And the Holy Spirit is still pouring out, saving souls now. And if you haven't accepted it yet, I highly recommend it. Because time is short. That last grain of sand will fall, and time will run out. I love you all. Stay blessed. Stay caffeinated. And have a wonderful day.